I'm just clicking away over here. No idea. I'm going to have some help. No doubt about it. So, all right. So there we are. We brought Jay Steagal in. That was fantastic. Way to land that one. And at least we've got some common sense going on with a guy who is writing some legislation that's going to limit some of this stuff.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
seems
little
to quite
tidbit.
clearly get it.
Yeah. By the way, he mentioned Frank Urbanic. Those
Yeah.
guys are buddies. Let me tell you,
Good.
I sense a lot of Frank Urbanic's input in what Steagall said. I mean, Steagall's a brilliant guy, and he understands it. He is well founded in the principles of liberty.
Right.
But I'm telling you, you get him with Urbanic together, those two guys can restore a lot of liberty between the courts and the legislature.
Right. Well, I mean, at some point, things that are proper, if you start to agree in areas, sometimes it's because you're not because you're comrades, but because you're coming up with the same conclusion.
Yeah. Uh,
So
one other thing I want to say, Governor Stitt has some very stalwart, loyal allies in the legislature. And Jay Steagal is one of them. Those guys have had breakfast together. They've had plenty of time to talk. So this is not a pick on the governor thing with Steagal. This is let's help the governor, have a better framework to understand how the system's supposed to
right.
work.
Actually, after having Representative Steagall on, I can now see more clearly why there could be some potential legitimate confusion on the governor's part of which act to operate under, because I can't explain it like Steagall did, but he was saying that because of the wording, you would pick one or the other.
Yeah. Now, Tom, it's been a couple weeks since we got together on 3D Politics Live, and a lot has happened. 3D Politics has officially declared our Citizen of the Year last year, and
Right.
that is Frank Urbanic. And
Nice.
and Steagall's just a big fan of what Urbanic's doing. Now, Urbanic got his, what do you call it, an injunction, a stay on the restaurant emergency order. So the governor was told, hey, you got to back off of this until the court can establish what's defensible, what's enforceable.
Right.
They were supposed to meet on the 30th, that is last Thursday. And they decided on Wednesday, hey, you know what? Let's give it a couple more weeks. And then you know what happened this week on, what was it? On Friday, Governor Stitt replaces his top legal counsel for the governor's office. Are the two related? I don't know.
Tune
We're
in.
gonna we're gonna find out here, because this Friday in Oklahoma City at District Court, the governor and his people are going to have to argue why it is that they get to do, especially ABLE Commission, the liquor oversight agency, is just writing up all these citations with no legal, foundational, statutory, or emergency basis for doing so.
Right.
So that's a little bit of the background on that. And Steagall's getting some permanent solutions to some very immediate problems.
Well, and he mentioned, people are more likely to give up their civil and constitutional rights during an emergency. It's literally more logical to give up those rights during that time. And this is why I brought up the meaning of the word emergency, if it's an emergency. I mean,
Yes.
if I tell you the sky is falling, and let me, you give me total control, or it's going to get dark tonight, and then it gets dark tonight, and you say it didn't work. I said, well, you didn't give me enough control. See?
Oh, no, Tom. You say it would have been even worse if you hadn't given me control.
It would have been darker, yeah. Me and Dan are in control. Would have been even darker. It would have
Yeah.
been worse. It would have lasted longer too. The only reason the sun came up, yes, because I was, that's how it works.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, it's a real problem here. And here's the other thing. I was talking to my doctor, went in for my checkup last month, and we got to talking about, all the COVID stuff. And I said, where's somebody to stand up for superstition? Because the beautiful thing about superstitions, it never changes. Science is changing all the time.
Right. That's right. A little salt over the shoulder, and we're done.
Well,
Hey, let's roll that Oldham thing as soon as you get a chance.
you betcha. I tell you, okay, guys, Oldham, who's normally part of the show, is actually going to be on the road tonight, and he filed this report. Let's roll
Here
it.
we go. We need. You got to also click share sound. Try it again. It's very difficult to do what we do. Don't try this.
You hear it? Tom, you hear it? Tom.
No.
Okay. Just a moment, and I'm
Hold
going
tight
to...
while we get your order. If you'll just pull through into the parking lot number 1, we'll bring it out to you when it's ready. Try to.
Okay, so share sound. Tell me where to find that.
There's a little bottom left when you're sharing. It'll say share sound for computer or optimize for sound.
Okay, I will stop that. So when you go to share, I see it.
There it is.
I see it. Guys, we're going to real quick share this. I'll start over at the beginning. Here's David Oldham.
Oldham on the road.
Yep.
Hey everyone, this is David Oldham, Constitutional Grounds, coming to you from what could be the COVID chase car, but right now is the Safe and Free Elections car, on the way to Washington, D.C. I wish I could be with everybody on 3D Politics tonight, but as we're driving and it's going to get dark and we're not going to have good cell signal, I will not be able to participate, but look forward to catching you all next week. We'll fill you in on everything that's going on. Look to my personal profile and Constitutional Grounds for updates. All day Wednesday, during the anywhere from 14 to 28 hours of debate over the upcoming, or potentially 14 to 28 hours debate. Coming up over the 7 disputed states. So look forward to seeing you guys. Enjoy tonight. Got a great lineup. Wish I could be there because I want to be in on these conversations. You guys have a good night.
Oh, there it is. David Oldham
right.
out on the road. So 3D Politics functioning in all ways, shapes, and forms across the nation with Oldham out there in the shuttlecraft. Headed to take care of business. Nice job, Oldham.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, he's saying Oldham will be providing to all of us on his Facebook page updates from the mall at the U.S. Capitol. I'm telling you, folks, it's going to be a zoo. I don't know what your Wednesday is like. I don't know what's on your schedule, but I'm telling you, you want to be near whatever your media source is, because this is something we haven't seen in 200 and some years.
Well,
we may never see again.
Yeah, it's the first Wednesday after the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. It's huge.
Oh, there you go. Explain Jupiter.
Which it's something. I don't know, it's a big giant conjunction.
Yeah.
Big thing.
Well, see, you always blame the bigger guy, because if you take him to court, he's got bigger pockets. You can sue.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
I
That's
finally
how
got in. Now, this is one to talk about later, but I finally did watch some of the Elon Musk interviews, and he's one interesting character. We'll have to talk about him. So, do you want to bring? You had some great stats on Oklahoma has the 4th lowest. You want to talk about that some more? Or did you hit that as hard as you wanted?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I tell you, we've here's the deal, guys. I'm going to set this up. I want to share the page with you just so you can see what it is. Oklahoma has got some great numbers, but our health department doesn't want to talk about them.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. So here, I'm going to share this with you right now. This is right here. Oklahoma ranks 4th best in COVID recoveries. Folks, right now, there's only 2,500 people have died that officially had a COVID positive confirmed, test.
Right.
But 80% of them were over the age of 65. 80%. So if you're under age 65, your chances of this killing you is so slim. I mean, it's way below my understanding of what your annual flu dangers have been for the last couple of decades. And the
Well,
snapshot is here.
the number for over 60, if you're over 60, it's 0.01. It's less than 1%.
Yeah, yeah, and then if you look at since July, the last half of last year, it's down to even less than that. So we spiked. We were up around 6% in April,
I said
but
that
then it
wrong.
went,
It's if you're under 60. Under
yeah,
60,
under
less than
60. Yeah,
1%.
yeah.
My mistake.
Okay, so let's look at this data snapshot. Yeah, we're fourth lowest in fatality rate amongst patients. We are 11th lowest in the fatality impact on our general population. This is amongst the 50 states.
Okay.
And then we are, now here's the other thing, we're the 15th highest saturation. So it's not because COVID hasn't hit yet, because COVID's hit Oklahoma more than the average state.
Okay.
Okay. So it's, we are handling this. And hats off to the following. Who gets credit? Some are going to praise the medical professionals for their innovations and in handling this and getting us this accomplishment. Okay. And that's legit. Some are going to praise the government policies and mandates, because there's always people that think government's the solution to everything. And then some are going to praise the maturity, wisdom, and responsibility of the citizens. Do we deserve any credit as a people for taking care of our own health? Doggone right we do. And then some are going to praise God for his divine protection. And I'm one of those who believes ultimately you got to put your faith in a higher power. After you've done what you can, you got to leave the results to God. So those are the things I wanted to say about it. But we're finding out that the early conventional wisdom has proven all wrong when they said, no, masks don't help you. And then said, oh, yeah, by the way, you do need masks now that we've stockpiled enough for us, and where they said, oh, we need more ventilators. Now they're saying, my God, the last thing you want to do is put somebody on a ventilator, and we're finding out so many things. Oh, by the way, the health department, I reported this a few weeks ago, where they had decided in their weekly reviews of the numbers, they found out that the communities with the mask mandate actually had a higher spike of COVID spread than communities that didn't have a mask mandate. So you know what they did? They quit doing the weekly reviews. Yeah. So I'm telling you, the health department, Steagal and I talked about this. I don't want to speak for him. I want to let him in. But I think he would agree. I've got a point here that agencies can get drunk on power, and they don't want to give up the power and the control and the prestige and the prominence that
Hey, you guys are still listening to 3D Politics. Tommy McKay, your fine host, and David Van. That's right, David Van, creator and editor of SoonerPolitics.org, expert on Oklahoma state government, professional advocate for mental health care, state committeeman for Tulsa County GOP. Find him at SoonerPolitics.org. And I am, of course, your fine host, Tommy McKay, your verbal Viking. Catch me at Tommy McKay on Facebook and on Twitter. And, of course, David Oldham out there, founder and scholar at constitutionalgrounds.com. Find him out there in the COVID chase car.
Yeah.
David, one of the things that I've noticed about the illustrious mayor is that he says he's going to do everything he can to contain this virus, but he's also said he's doing everything Dr. Dart tells him to. So what is he really doing? And why in the hell do we need a mayor if Dr. Dart's going to do it?
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got some sound bites from GT Bynum coming up. But this is what you're saying is the good news, they spin it towards their control. What I was going to say is they don't only just get drunk on their control and power. They are such elitists living in an echo chamber. They think they're doing the martyrs good. They think they're doing what's right. They think they're saving my life. They literally think they're saving me. Okay? Yeah. And this is where it comes down to, when do I get to assess my own risk? I will assess my risk. The minute you start saving my life, now you're in between me and the fruits of my labor. That's how
Yes.
you calculate wages, is what is the risk. And so I don't need GT Bynum or Dr. Dart or anybody else telling me how risky it is out there, especially when you flip-flop in between master good, master bad. Outdoor, yes, outdoor, no. Inside, yes, inside, no. Breast milk good, breast milk bad. Medical science flip-flops regularly. That's why we've got to use political science to decide political issues. Go ahead.
Well, let me say this, Tom. The nature of science is it's supposed to be questioned. It is supposed to be continually challenged. That's how we innovate. That's how we get better science, is we question the norms. We question the established belief system.
There is no consensus in science.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you got people telling us, how dare you question our scientific experts? Don't you dare. I mean, they are like the folks who said, how dare you say the earth isn't flat? The Bible says there's four corners, so it has to be flat.
Well, that's right.
And Tom, you've got what C.S. Lewis used to call the moral busybodies. And he says they're worse than the tyrant.
Definitely.
Because they're affirmed by their own conscience that they are saving you from yourself.
Right.
And I'm telling you, we have got to get away from the people who think that it's their job to protect our health. Tom, it is their job to protect our liberties. We protect our own health.
This is something that gets back. I mean, maybe a year ago, I was arguing or trying to make the case to people I respect that run for county offices in Oklahoma. It is definitely worthy of arguing your point on Facebook and social media to those that can't understand. The argument was, well, there's no reason to argue that people can't get it. Yeah, there's a reason, all right. Continue to say what's true all the time and repeat it. Otherwise, the stupid dipstick voices overtake the echo chamber. If you don't continue to push back against the Peggy tyrant on the Tulsa World Opinion page and the other Joe idiot on the Tulsa World Opinion page, if you don't argue with these citizen tyrants in their medium, they will continue to just ring the bell. Okay, and the other thing I don't understand is, why do we pay towards all this socialized medicine? We're all going to pitch in for the big hospital, and we're all going to use our tax dollars to pitch in because government's the only people that can handle it when we get a pandemic. But when we get a pandemic, government doesn't handle anything. They immediately ration. They put us into a class, groups, stratus, who's important, who's not important, and then they ration. Even GT Bynum's playing the game once again today. When we get to my sound bites, he's pretending we ran out of beds. But then he says, really, the problem is personnel, because we never ran out of beds. We only ran out of personnel. And that's not a virus problem. That's a bad management problem. If government is only going to ration the hospital when things get bad, we don't need government. Private corporations could ration the hospital just as well or better than government could ration the hospitals. What the hell do we need government to ration the hospitals for?
Yeah. And I want to say,
do that.
Yeah, the professional whiners, the teachers union, they screamed and yelled that they should be higher than level 3 in priority of who gets the vaccines. And they said, we aren't going back until we're all vaccinated. We're not going to teach your kids. We're not going to do this, that. Tom, the clerk down at Walmart who takes care of, helping the elderly buy their groceries, that person is more important to be vaccinated than the teacher teaching our children at school. Period.
Again, this is, if for me personally, no offense, David Van, if you fall into that argument, you're literally, this is the caste system. We are arguing about who's more important in society. This is ludicrous. This is how we tear each other down. It is not, there is no more essential anybody than anybody else until government starts labeling and rationing.
Well, and that's the problem. Whenever you got the government in control of any commodity, and there's more demand for it than supply, and the government says, okay, we're going to prioritize, and they always prioritize themselves first. If you notice, AOC, who just turned 30 years old, just got her vaccine, but yet my mother, who's 84, is still waiting for hers.
And who was it dancing in Times Square? Shut
Yeah.
down Times Square.
So
I mean, what we know is the rich and the powerful always get to do what they want. Anyway, this is why Peggy from the Tulsa World Opinion page is so dangerous. Is she wants to shut it down for everybody, pretending like the rich and the powerful are also gonna comply.
yeah,
Morons, right and left, sheep.
yeah, Tom, I'll just be real quick with this, but I want to share it with you. This is what C.S. Lewis had to say. It's such a good quote. He said, of all the tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under a robber baron than under the omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. And I just think that's an excellent way of putting it by the great C.S.
Well, that's
Lewis.
no kidding. That's right. They they do it not only out of their own conscience, but it's progressive in its nature, so
Yeah,
that there's a never-ending adjustment. It's like the classic story of the nagging wife. There's never a way that she's happy. It's never right. So first it's like, oh, you got to wear a mask. So you wear the mask. Oh, no, not that mask. Okay, so then oh, you're wearing it wrong. So it's a
yeah,
progress the progressive politics is like the pedophile that grooms their victim. It's a continual grooming for more and more control of their life. What do you got?
right. But Tom, the number one moral busybodies who fit this description are the public health officials of our state, of our municipalities, and of our nation.
Dr.
Period.
Dart authorized by G.T. Bynum stepping out of the way to let an unelected bureaucrat tell us whether we're going to have Thanksgiving or not. It's
Yeah,
absolutely. And then G.T. Bynum today continues to act like he's taking credit for doing something to contain the virus when he's already admitted he doesn't do anything. He
yeah,
does what Dr. Dart tells him to do.
yeah. And
Dr.
Tom,
Dart's running the freaking city. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
when you're the chief executive of a municipality, a county, or state or federal, you never cede over final decision to people who just live in their own little, isolated world of their own little pandemic. And I'll use an example. A friend of mine had his father-in-law near death in the hospital. He has a heart condition. He has diabetes. So you know what they did? They brought in a diabetes specialist, gave him some medicine, and he almost died of a heart attack from that. So then they brought in a heart specialist. He switches the medication, and now the guy's diabetes is through the roof. And you know what? Neither of those two specialists should have been controlling his health. It should have been his primary care doctor saying, okay, I'll listen to both of you, but ultimately I'm deciding. That is what your mayor, your governor are. They're the one that are supposed to be making the final decision. And why? Because Donald Trump said the cure can never be more painful, more damaging than that which you're trying to prevent.
I mean, if being a doctor was so damned important to running the city and the country and the world, why in the hell didn't we always elect doctors? Why is it we just now figured that out, that Dr. Dart is the best politician in the world because he knows how to lock you down?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, a couple of people were running for state senate office. I won't mention it, but I'll tell you now, I was in a meeting. This is a very, central committee of the Tulsa Republican Party. And we're talking about, have we got candidates? And on some of these races, we had more than one. And, a certain person's name came up and said, well, they're a doctor. Well, there's other candidates in it. But somebody said, but that's a doctor. And my friend Amanda Teagarden said it as good as anyone said. Historically, doctors have made horrible legislators because they're the moral busybodies. They think they know better than us, and they think that the government should have the right to mandate our personal health decisions over to them.
And they don't even have to be a busybody. If they're an expert in medical science, then their position will flip flop according to the
Ah,
changes in medical science.
yeah,
Because medical science, according to all medical professionals, will say medical science changes all the time, which is
yeah,
why we're suffering today, is because we're using medical science to create political decisions.
yeah,
We're screwed. We're back and forth and back and forth.
yeah,
And the rich and powerful will have their parties without their masks on anywhere they want, anytime they want. But Peggy from the Tulsa World Opinion will tell me I'm killing people if I go to Quick Trip. It's
yeah,
insane what they're doing out there.
yeah. Now,
Uh,
Tom,
yeah.
I don't want to ignore somebody else's to blame here, and that's corporate media. They become the lapdogs for these scare tactics. Because I tell you, it helps ratings. When people are fearful, they keep tuning into the news. They don't turn it off. And it's
I
always
think
good
it's
for.
fight bonus. I think it's fight bonus. I think people at Channel 8, Channel 6, Channel 2, and the Frontier, I think they get paid fight bonus for pushing out tripe and fear
Yeah,
mongering. Go ahead.
yeah, this is a real problem here because here's me, a guy who works a day job to make a living, and then I'm running Sooner Politics, and I'm trying to get all these other bloggers and get their stuff noticed, but I'm also writing my stuff. Last night, I'm up till midnight scouring data that's freely available, but there's information in there that's not getting out. Why? Because it mitigates the dangers. And you know what? They don't want to mitigate the dangers. They want to focus on, oh, but this new strain's coming out, or oh, this other thing.
Which
And
is
there's,
yeah, this was the point I made a year ago when I said, do you think this is the last virus they're going to control you over?
oh
As
God,
soon as this one's done, they're going to have virus 2021. They're going to come up and, oh, well, we got the new strain. And I'm like, ooh, who's surprised? Ooh.
yeah.
Nobody's
And
surprised.
yeah, and don't forget, this was a laboratory created virus at the Wuhan laboratory
Well,
that
you're a
studied.
conspiracy
I,
theorist.
you know what? I am calling them out on this. There's no way this came from some bat soup at a wet market in downtown Wuhan.
I will say this. I mean, when you start talking about people trying to take over the world, they'll come out of the woodwork to call you a conspiratorial theorist. But if you'll just do a quick cursory search of just look up world domination, and you'll get the top 10 list from Alexander the Great is basically where it starts. Hitler was our most modern example, but there's a list of people in between, all the way to Pinky and the Brain. The idea of people, entities, bureaucracies, governments, and theorists trying to take over the world is not a conspiracy theory. You're still listening to
Yeah.
3D Politics, your fine host, your verbal Viking and perspicuous pirate of conversation, Tommy McKay, right here with David Van, creator and editor of Sooner Politics. It's the online newspaper committed to informing and mobilizing Oklahoma's expanding spectrum of conservative political voices. Wow, that's a mouthful.
I wrote that.
That's pretty good, too. I said it well, too.
Yeah, that was smooth.
Better than anyone. State committeeman also for the Tulsa County GOP, David Van. We're also going to, I've still got sound bites coming up from GT Bynum. We still have 3 stories to get to from you, or 2 at least. And I want to thank Oldham for being out there, and really, he's on the front line tonight, just doing it.
Yeah.
So we'll hold down the fort here while he's out there slinging hash for liberty. Government delays lawsuit over emergency restaurant closure. Did we do that one yet?
Why don't we let's get to your stuff, and then we'll get back to this, because I got 2 reports I want to finish the night with.
Well, you get me started. It's going to be bad. So Bynum, the illustrious Mayor Bynum, was on KRMG this morning, I think.
Very illustrious.
And and so I want, yeah, I think it was KRMG. No, it was KFAQ. I think it was Casey Bartholomew was interviewing Bynum. And so Bynum is talking about a number of things. He says his number one thing is to contain the virus. That's his, when he's getting into 2021 and what Bynum's going to do. His number one thing is to contain the virus and the impact of the virus, which I've already ranted. He has already said we've done everything that the Tulsa Health Department has asked us to do. So then really you're not doing anything. The Tulsa Health Department is doing everything. So you're not making any legitimate decisions except for rubber stamping whatever Dr. Dart says. Then he moves on to the sound bites that I want to talk about. Police department. Now, folks, here's what he says about the independent report from 5 years ago.
Yeah, we had an independent expert come in about 5 years ago and tell us that we needed to be staffed at a level of 950 patrol officers. And at that time, we were at about 740. Yeah. And by the time I became mayor, we were in the 730s.
So you know what we're talking about now. We're talking about number of officers, and 5 years ago, which was what? 2016, right before he became mayor. But what happened right before he became mayor was the Vision 2025 package. Remember the Vision package that him and his uncle Dewey Bartlett Jr. pushed? Could you hear that clip, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. So there he is talking about the number of officers, and that notice how the GT Bynum, an independent expert, nobody we know, but an independent, some magic 8-ball person came along and said, wow, you guys need a number. And now he's acting like that's the number we need. We got to get to that number because now that's the number we want because some independent expert arbitrarily said some number. So now understand that Proposition 1, 5 years ago, this is what he was talking about. 5 years ago, we were at some number and the independent expert said. So he pushed that same line when he was advocating for Vision 2025 Proposition 1 that totals $272 million. Now, I've been trying to warn people since then. There's a 62.5% increase in Tulsa sales tax starting this summer. Okay. It's been in the works for 5 years. Now, right now, GT Bynum is on the air today pretending like this never, he's not addressing the fact that these budgeting issues came into play 5 years ago. He's pretending like him and the city council have come together to budget for the police department. But Proposition 1 has the police department. This is 5 years ago, okay? Proposition 1 had it that the police department would get $202 million and the fire department would get $70 million. And those taxes are going to kick in with no phase-in period coming up 7/1/2021. So July 1st, here they come. Mm-hmm. Here come your 62.5% sales tax increase for Proposition 1. Now, Proposition 1 was the proposition of Vision 2025 that plowed through the Brown ordinance. Do you remember what the Brown ordinance was?
Never heard of that before.
I'm surprised you. So Bartlett and his family sidekick, Little Baines Bynum, conspired to squeeze almost entirely all the temporary from the third penny life form. Bynum plunged through the Brown ordinance like Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon. Both had admitted. So when Bynum crashed the Brown ordinance, what the Brown ordinance said was the third penny sales tax, that's the penny we're using to pay for these extended things. The Brown ordinance said we cannot use the third penny sales tax for general fund items like police and fire. Right. So Proposition 1 of the Vision 2025 Proposition 1 of the Vision 2025 proposal blasted through the Brown ordinance. Yep. There's a Brown ordinance that said you can't spend that money on what government is supposed to already spend the money on. The general fund like police and fire. because nobody's going to argue you don't need police and fire. Of course you do. But the concept of the third penny was, let's spend a penny on things that aren't general fund. And that was the Brown ordinance. Well, G.T. Bynum plowed through that, okay, like Julius Caesar did the Rubicon.
Yep.
5 years ago, it was already decided by G.T. Bynum, who promoted it for a year, that we would spend money on Proposition 1, Vision 2025 for police, department, and fire money. Now, listen to him talk.
The council and I have funded that record level of staffing to try and move forward. Of course, you lose about 40 or 50 a year to normal retirement and attrition. Yeah. But as of today, we're at about 840. And so we still have quite a ways to go to be where we want to be.
Okay, the juice of that one was where he says, me and the city council have funded. Okay, he's talking about, he says we are maxing out how many recruits we can have in the police department. That's three sessions of 30 each. That's 90 per year. But we lose, if we find out, 40 to 50 a year. So when he talks about adding 90, he leaves out that we lose 50. Later he brings it up, but he never correlates the two. He always acts like he's getting 90 every year when really he's getting half of that, because later he admits. Let's see what this next one is.
I think you have a council and definitely a mayor who are committed to getting where we need to be from a staffing standpoint when it comes to our police department.
So here he is saying that the city council and the mayor are where they need to be about, we're going to fund it. Yep. They already decided Proposition 1 is funding it from 5 years ago. Your taxes in Tulsa, sales tax go up July 1st, 2021, this year, 62.5% in Tulsa sales tax, exploding with no phase-in period, because 5 years ago, G.T. Bynum was promoting, pushing, and advertising to push this thing to pay for police in violation of the Brown ordinance. Now he's acting like we just got together to finance this thing, okay? Now, here's my second point, or maybe that was my sixth point. One of the things I'm not bringing out in a soundbite is he talks about the police department's on real high alert right now because of the COVID-19's got everybody shut down, and child abuse and domestic violence is up. It's funny though, because when he talks about himself, he never talks about himself as the people that are stuck in the cycle of violence. He only talks about people that are other than him that commit child abuse and domestic violence, right? It's only other people that the cops deal with, not him. Also, he talks later in his little thing about trying to recruit business and expand businesses here. He wants to recruit his third thing. So the three things Bynum's doing: containing the virus, which is bullcrap; police department staffing, which is bullcrap; and then 3, recruit businesses to come to Tulsa and expand businesses here. My first question would be, why do you say it in that order? Why don't you expand businesses here first? And then maybe that would help recruit some businesses here.
And Tom, I don't want businesses here that require special favors and special incentives from government in order to compete in what should be an open market. And I don't want somebody coming here only because they got a special deal that's going to sunset in 5 years, and then they'll go take a deal from somebody in Nevada to move there in 5 years. I'd rather reward the people who have for generations on end been part of Oklahoma and helping develop Oklahoma. How about them?
Bynum continues to work on a 15-year plan for a Tulsa that's meant to be eventually, but never mows the lawn for me and turns on the lights for my wife. It's ridiculous. Okay, so here's another soundbite, and he's talking about the police department. Now we're talking about the police department, and I got a question about how does diversity fall into place with law and order.
Then also wanting to make sure that that we're building a diverse department. That the fastest growing community in the city of Tulsa is the Hispanic community. We want to make sure that we have a growing number of Hispanic officers within our department.
So I got a question. Do the Hispanic people view law and order differently than anybody else? So that the point that is like, we've got to make sure to get some of them on the force to make sure that those people who think about law and order so differently are there. What about people who are criminal minded? Do we need to get some of those on the force too? I mean, how open are we going to be? Why in the hell does diversity play a point in law and order? What is so different from any group to the next when it comes to enforcing law?
Right.
Well, that's not even what he means, Tom. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how they play that?
Yeah.
But I mean, this is continued. So that's the diversity. Let's see. It's another balanced. Oh, here's what I wish. I wish Oldham was here. Tell me about this one. This is the municipal theory that Tulsa operates on a balanced budget. Now, when I ran for mayor 2016, what I heard was that Tulsa runs everything through a trust, so they don't have to, so they can pretend to run a balance. So here's what Mayor Bynum says today on KFAQ.
We have a balanced budget every year. This isn't like the federal government where we get to borrow money or print currency. We have a balanced budget every year. This isn't like the federal government where we get to borrow money or.
We have a balanced budget. That is so much crap. That is technically accurate, probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
What about
Tom,
with the trusts?
It's
what
like
do they do with the trusts?
What they've been doing also for decades is they pay these promotional fees for services to the Chamber of Commerce for all the things the Chamber of Commerce does to promote Tulsa. But you know what happens then? Chamber of Commerce then turns around and spends the money on our mayor and our state in our city councilors for all these junkets they get to do, so that guys like Bynum can say, oh, this isn't taxpayer expense, the chamber's paying for this.
It's like Biden, who says, I never took any money from outside a country. Well, he got it from his son. That's how.
Right.
Notice also in this interview that he did today on KFAQ, let's see, he differed. So Bynum, Bynum, he when he talks about the school districts, he defers to the school districts because he says, the school districts are really the ones that are in the fight. They're on the front lines. They know whether teachers should get back in. So when it comes to regulations, restrictions, and controlling people's behavior, he likes to defer to the school districts. That's good, but he doesn't just defer to the local communities and the state entities. He likes to say that the governor's stitch should come down harder, and these other cities, they're bad. It's amazing how Bynum loves to reap the benefit of being one of two of the largest cities in Oklahoma until the health crisis comes, and then he needs to restrict everybody from coming to his town, and then he's like, hey, the problem we have in Tulsa hospitals is everybody from not Tulsa. I mean, this is insane. Disparaging all the counties or all the communities around us.
Yeah. And, the disparity. Tom, have you got another point on that?
I continue to go and go. He bashes the people of Tulsa. He continues to take up both sides of it. He says, we're doing the right thing in Tulsa. It's everybody else in the other communities who are filling up our hospitals. But then he says, but even in Tulsa, the people, I see it every day. You go into places and they're not. So he bashes everybody, but then he bashes all of his citizens in his municipality, but then pretends that they're doing the right thing also.
Tom,
all four corners of his mouth.
They aren't his hospitals. They aren't the city of Tulsa's hospitals. They're all privately owned, corporate or publicly traded, but they're private sector hospitals. Not one of them is a state hospital. Now, you might say the OSU regional, you might make an argument that that's state, but the city of Tulsa doesn't have a stinking hospital. The fact is, we encourage those hospitals to grow in Tulsa. You take this cancer treatment center. Yeah, it's in Tulsa, but it's really close to Broken Arrow. And by God, if Broken Arrow had courted them to build out there, city of Tulsa would say, "Oh no, come, we'll give you a special tax break if you build in Tulsa."
Right.
So don't give us this crap about it's our hospitals, Mayor.
He longs to benefit from it until there's an emergency, and then he wants to shut everybody out of it,
Yeah,
and including members of his own community.
sure,
I mean,
sure.
this guy is a tyrant deluxe. He says that he brags that Tulsa has the most restrictions of
Yeah.
any city. You know, well, congratulations, you freaking tyrant. He pretends that he's running it when really it's the Tulsa Health Department that runs it. And then when it get he telegraphs his mentality. The mask order is asked on the interview. So that when does the mask order expire? Oh, it expires in February. But Biden goes on to say, oh yeah, he wants it extended. He expects it to be extended. So
Yeah.
what about the science? Don't you want to get to February and figure out the science? No, hell no. He wants to already extend it. See, he's not going by data like he says he's going by data. He already knows, prejudging in February, he wants to extend the mask mandate.
Yeah.
He's not waiting for the data. He wants the control now.
Yeah. And by the way, I'd like to segue into minority relations here because there's another story coming up. I haven't told you about it, but it's kind of breaking today, and I'll have more on it next week.
All right, do it.
All right. So I'm taking care of a client today, doing some work at their home, and they mentioned a friend of theirs who's in his mid 40s, as I understand it, that he wanted the flu vaccine really bad. He did not want to wait until his turn came up, being only 47 years old. Couldn't find any place where he could get not the flu, the COVID-19 vaccine,
All right.
is what I should say. So he calls around, ends up there's a place up in Miami, Oklahoma. Now I've got to research this a little bit more, but the federal government also gives a special amount of a lot of stuff to Indian Health.
Yep.
And that not just the 5 civilized tribes, as we call them, but you go up to Miami, Oklahoma, there's more than a dozen federally recognized tribes. So what do you know? This guy finds out, he drives up to Miami, Oklahoma, Ottawa County, and tomorrow he's going to get a flu, the COVID virus vaccine tomorrow.
Okay.
And they're like, when is it my turn? Because I got him by, probably 14, 15 years. So now, if a minority is harder hit with this vaccine, should our government make a special effort to make resources more available to that targeted minority? Tom, I ask you, would it make sense?
Could you use a question in a sentence?
Well, I'm saying if a particular virus that's deadly happens to hit, let's say, people of African descent, should we make resources more available to people by that ethnic?
It's kind of a loaded question. You are listening to David Van, editor of Sooner Politics.
You're stalling.
I'm just obeying the intercom whistle to reset every 15 minutes. By golly, 3D Politics every Monday night, 7 p.m.-ish, and you never know what's going to happen because we just try everything all the time, but we're cruising at high altitude and warp speed. Tommy McKay, your fine host here, your verbal Viking with David Van, state committeeman for Tulsa County GOP. So your question was, should we? I have to swallow a huge pill. The premise is so skewed, but I mean, if there's a need the government is in charge of, then yes, there should be some effort made towards. Okay.
You got to target your resources to the area most impacted,
That's
right?
correct. Government can only ration. Yes.
Okay. So I got some statistics for you, and these are Oklahoma statistics.
Okay.
And this, again, if you go to soonerpolitics.org, it's my headline story. I wrote it last night and finished up this morning.
Okay.
White, I'll call it European descent, Oklahomans make up about 62% of the population of Oklahoma.
Okay.
But for COVID patients, they are an inordinately higher amount of the victims of COVID. All right. So where are the resources going to the people hardest hit? Does it only work when it's a protected minority, and it doesn't ever go the other way around when you're white? I'll throw you another one. Men make up 49% of our population, but of the COVID fatalities, they are 30% higher than women. Should men be given an extra amount of resources publicly because we're targeted? And now you understand why I'm throwing out the conspiracy theory about this Asian virus from Wuhan, China, that just so happens to hit white men more than black folks, more than Indians, more than what we call Native American Indian tribes.
More than Indians. You're trying to outdo me, Van.
I'm just trying to say it's,
I'm just-
you know, this is hitting white men. This is a boutique virus designed in a laboratory. And it just so happens that the Chinese have gotten over it. They just had a big party in downtown Wuhan, and there was no masks, no mandates, no restrictions, and yet we're locked down. Why? Because it's hitting European whites more than anyone else.
Well, I think where it's hitting them is in their mind of the sheep, and that is that we continue to pretend that the virus is shutting us down. It's Mayor Bynum and Dr. Dart and Peggy from the Tulsa World.
Well, yeah.
Opinion.
And all those are
the
valid
people.
points.
Those
I'm
are,
just
yeah,
making
those
a
are the
separate,
people shutting us down.
yeah, I'm just making a separate point here on, you know, this virus is coming after guys like you and me, Tom, more than anyone else. It just is. And the elderly. No, there's no doubt. The elderly are the ones getting 80% of the fatalities in Oklahoma.
So anybody could agree or disagree to somewhere on the spectrum of what Van just said. And so it really doesn't matter to me whether it's 100% manufactured and a total conspiracy or zero manufactured and accidentally, oh my God. What I know is that I should be free as an American citizen to calculate and assess my own personal risk.
Yeah.
Not me wears a mask to make sure grandma is safe. If grandma needs to be safe, grandma needs to shut her in place.
Yes.
And run away.
Absolutely. Tom,
Okay.
the Swedish model ends up, yeah, there are some great Swedish models, but that's beside the point.
Who's a comedian now, man?
So anyway, the Swedish public policy, which was we're going to protect the elderly and the sickly, and the rest of you just go about it. It's not going to be that big a deal. You know, you got a lot bigger dangers just dealing with car accidents, you know. So that's how they've handled it. And they've come out way better. Half the fatalities of just over across the bay into United Kingdom, England, Great Britain. You know, so the shutdown is making things worse. I think that the data is overwhelming to show that. You let the people take responsibility for themselves, be respectful, and we're going to get over this quicker. We're going to get it over it safer. We're going to get over it more, probably less financially strained.
See, I'm not even arguing whether we're going to get over it. I'm saying let's say there's a big bad dragon at the front of the cave. And it's the worst disease you've ever seen. And it's so dangerous, anybody who looks at it. And it's like Goliath. And you can't even touch it because it's so dangerous. All the other things you can say about impossible, da-da-da-da. And guess who gets to decide who's going to deal with it? Me. I get to decide whether I'm going to argue with Goliath, the giant virus who's so dangerous, it'll kill me the minute I look at it. It's up to me to defend myself, my wife, and my family. So it's not about the government telling me, oh, you better, because you know what the government does, G.T. Bynum, he restricts me. That's all.
Yeah. Tom, I also got some breaking news. We just had some people hauled out of the courthouse in Oklahoma City today, and I've got a short video. Tim Harper actually sent it to me. You want to see it?
When did this happen?
This happened today. I don't have specific time, but Tim Harper just sent it. And
Share
I'm going to go ahead and play that with you right now.
Share the hell out of it.
All right.
He's sharing it now.
Please respect one another. Respect one another.
There's Moto. Okay, text.
Get that fade, motherfucker! Get that
Here comes the preacher.
For the fade, he told me to come in for the fade on behalf of you. I came for that fade. He's gonna give me that fade. I'm a nigga, right? I'm a nigga. I'm a nigga. I'm a nigga. That's what he said. That's what y'all's friend said. That's what your friend said. I'm a nigga. That's what your boy said. We going outside. We gonna catch that fade.
Jerry.
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of recap us there? I mean, one guy.
Yeah.
good
So
guy,
what ended up
other guy's a
happening?
bad guy.
This is the Oklahoma County Jail Trust Board. Remember, we got rid of the sheriff finally, right? We got Tommy Johnson, young Republican black man who's, a lot of hope in this guy. But the county commissioners decided they were going to do a power move and take the jail away from the sheriff's office and run it through a trust. Tulsa did the same thing when we built the David L. Moss jail here. We found out, let's give it back to the sheriff. We really don't want to run it through a trust.
We don't know
But
what we're doing.
nonetheless, hey, the Oklahoma County Jail was the deadliest jail in the United States for a long time. In fact, Al Gerhardt tells us he had to do everything he could when they indicted him on the blackmail thing. They wanted to put him in that jail, and he was convinced he would die in that jail. Unfortunately, the bondsman helped him to go through the Midwest City Police Department and bond out without ever getting locked up. But nonetheless, so they're having this meeting. Moto's been going to him. Moto has really been up on the Oklahoma County politics, the local level. So he's sitting in the front row, and evidently some words are changed and somebody's offended. I don't know. I guess they claim he said the killer N-word. And so they throw up a tantrum and stop the meeting. Now, Moto got hauled out, and then so did at least a couple other people that were having the scuffle with him. I did some follow-up. Harper said, no, nobody got arrested, but they did get ejected from the meeting. So that's what we got. So,
Wow.
yeah, just a little bit of Jerry Springer moment in tonight's show. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, we get to decide. So somebody decides that the definition of emergency is if somebody uses the N-word, and then we got.
Oh yeah.
I mean, again, the definition of emergency. That's something we have to. That's something we have to definitely deal with.
Freedom of speech does not apply when you use certain words in certain lists, I guess. But that's where we're going to, folks. And somebody's got to stand up and say, no. I remember being told by my first grade teacher, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will not hurt me.
Well, we got to run like hell from this class society that we're in.
Because who gets to make the list, Tom?
GT Bynum.
Yeah.
Him and Dr. Dart, sick back, maskless. Talk about
Dr. Dart. There we go. Now he's a mental health
God,
expert.
he's an unelected bureaucrat. You read, I posted several times about the unelected bureaucrats that the bureaucracies put these unelected bureaucrats. Dr. Dart never faced an election, but he's telling us whether we can have Thanksgiving or not. It's out of hand, and then he's getting his pretense of authority through Bynum, who thinks that philanthropic behavior is somehow politically representative.
Yes. Neither Jill Biden or Dr. Bruce Dart are physicians. They use the word doctor very loosely here. all right, Dr. Dart, as we call him, has a PhD in administration.
Nice.
Okay.
PhD, so.
In administration.
Administration.
Now, I know somebody could explain
it.
it. I'm simplifying it for you folks. He doesn't know a thing about ear, nose, and throat or any other part of your body any more than the janitor does.
Yeah. So if we're both there at the same time and somebody needs a tracheotomy, I'm just as good a shot as he is.
Oh, the dentist would be better than him. Yes. So anyway, I've got 2 save the dates I want to finish the show with. I don't know what else you got.
Well,
all right.
2 more stories and Steagal's Citizen of the Year.
Yes. So want to tell you something that's going on. Boy, I don't have it here. Let me pull this back off and get. So the OKGOP has an event. Here we go. Now I'm going to share it.
Is this the rally?
This is this Wednesday at the Oklahoma State Capitol. Our friends from Drive for 45. This is the Trump fans. They're rabid rallying,
nice.
Decorate your pickup truck with flags and drive all over town. That bunch.
Come back later to pick up your flags. Yeah.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City chapter. This time they're camping out at the Capitol at noon this Wednesday. Be there. That's date number 1. Okay?
Okay.
Be a part of that. Another date I want to tell you about, especially for our friends in Oklahoma City, is there are a special event going on, and I'm pulling that up. This is a story I did just last weekend. Judge delays hearing on emergency COVID rules. Now, this is the deal that Frank Urbanik is taking the governor to court, and that got moved. This is the district court judge, Susan Stallings, and she's done a great job realizing that she's got to impose an injunction, a freeze on enforcing these rules that don't have a substantiated basis for them. Okay. So she said, okay, we're going to meet 1:30 p.m. Well, it'll be this Friday, the 8th. Okay. In Oklahoma District Court, Oklahoma County. So I wanted to let you know about those 2 things, especially our friends over in Oklahoma City area who can make these things more easily. Be there. If you can't be there on Wednesday for the rally, be glued. Pop some popcorn, folks. This is going to be exciting. It's going to be educational, and this will be something to tell your grandkids about many years from now.
Well, yeah, I've got my neighbor is a construction guy. He doesn't do politics, and every so often I talk to him. I do my politics, and at one point in the discussion, the terms capitalists and socialists came up. And he's like, "Well, I just thought capitalists were just out for the money." I mean, this is literally the problem we have. The public schools have so totally informed. Not just ill-taught, but misinformed the children for 40 years that they don't even understand what capitalism means anymore.
Yeah, of course.
So I said to him, and his wife jumped on board, I said, you want, all this is you want to own the stuff that you own. He's like, well, yeah, okay, so you own, and you have the right to sell your hours of labor and contract them out for what you decide, right? Yeah. So capitalism. You want to own what you own and have the rights to your fruits of your labor. Yes. Yep. Congratulations.
Yep. It's just class warfare. That's all they're doing. Yep.
My God, yes. And I still am arguing. I don't do anything till I get triggered. Somebody's like, Joel Osteen has a big house. I was like, you're class envy. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
Joel Osteen gives so much more than you ever thought of in his lifetime. They're all bent on the class envy. 600 versus 2,000 and who got more. You guys are a bunch of sheep.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't see their own greed as bad, but boy, they want every preacher to take a vow of poverty, don't you know?
As though Joel Osteen forces you to pay taxes. My God, it's all charity instead of eleemosynary. Where's Oldham when you need him?
Yeah, there you go. All right. We never did officially acknowledge our Citizen of the Year for last year. Can I do it?
Do it.
All right. We're going to do it right now. And folks, our good friend Frank Urbanek is our Citizen of the Year for 2020. And I want to say, civil rights attorney Frank Urbanek, for his efforts to hold state and local government to respect and defend the federal and state constitutions in their official duties. In a year like none other, 2020 is a memory we're all destined to never forget, sadly. But in times of trial, peril, and tyranny, those who remind us of our civilization's founding principles are especially to be valued. And those who rise up to champion the cause of individual liberty, societal virtue, and advancement of prosperity, they are to be esteemed. So I'm saying, Frank Urbanek, you're the man. And I gave honorable mention to two great men, Timothy Harper and Rick Hubbard, for their work to develop a sound policy amongst law enforcement regarding our Second Amendment rights.
Nice job, boys.
There we go. So that's our report. Now, I need to apologize to everybody. I really wanted Jay Steagal to have time to get in on this, but I talked too much during his.
Well, I rushed him out. We stumbled in the beginning. I was committed to the hard break. We can have him back on. We can have him back on.
And we will. We need to. In fact, Tom, I'd like to leave it to our listeners. If there's any special guests we brought in that you really appreciate and want them back, please send us a note. Put it as a comment on this video. We'd like to hear. We're working out some things, Tom. I know you're not ready to announce this, but we're looking at bringing in guests a lot more regularly. Am I not right?
We're trying to bring in more and more interaction from the people who are watching, etc. But we're trying to hone out our delivery here of conservative discussion on 3D politics with David Van, David Oldham, and bringing all that stuff to you. So way to go, these guys. And one of the things I noticed when I argued with the city council back in '95, there were several times when they had me up on the ropes and they really pushed me through the grinder, and boy, that lasted 5 minutes of, oh yeah, you're so stupid, da, da, da. But when you win against government, it goes like this: all right, next, drive through, please. So when Frank Urbanek wins against the governor, it's like, next, okay, no. Nobody ever, there's no hoopla, nothing ever sounds off. You don't get a winning sound or anything. Government just pushes you under and pushes you back. So the Frank Urbanek, literally adjusting the governor's behavior. And I can see now, after talking today with Jay Steagal, I can see a more clear understanding of why the governor even might have been confused on which, authority to operate under, because the wording is not clear and the word emergency is not defined properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and look, the governor himself says, hey, look, I'm getting new chief legal counsel for the governor's office now. And it was like immediate. So you can't say it's because of the Urbanek lawsuit, but you can't say it isn't either. And be watching for a special session. Could come as early as this week. There's a couple different issues. There's this whole health emergency thing. How much does the governor want to push it? Or how much does he say, you know what, we just need to back off on all this stuff. We're going to be okay without all these extra measures. And the other thing is, are we going to allow for video conference, Zoom meeting like you and I are having right now, Tom, with all the listeners? Do we want to have municipal government agency meetings to continue to do this? Because right now we sunsetted the special provision that we allowed last year for this. So that's coming up as well. That may go to special session.
Very interesting.
Yep.
Well, I've already raged as much as I can on one evening against Bynum. We ran Jay Steagal through. Thank goodness for him, House of Rep. Also, Frank Urbanek, we've honored him. Oldham, we brought in his video.
Yep.
Anything else before we get out of here, Van?
Just be alert. It's going to be big on Wednesday. I can't even predict it, but it's going to be massive. You're going to see over 1 million people swarming the U.S. Capitol.
Just
this
understand, yeah. And if if you're a conservative capitalist, you want to privately own things. You are the underdog. You're already beat. The Occupy Wall Street and the negative socialists have already got their people in the street.
Yep.
So the idea that you're going to come together and rally and rush the streets, they've already got their soldiers there. We are already under the gun. This isn't an equal fight. We're already losing. We're going to have to really push it. That's why I thank Oldham for being out there in person on the front lines. 3D Politics right back here to keep the home fires burning as it is. Here we go again. 3D Politics. One more week in the books. Tommy McKay, your fine host, and David Van, creator, editor of SoonerPolitics.org, expert on Oklahoma state government, professional advocate for mental health care, state committeeman for Tulsa County GOP. Next week, we hope to have back David Oldham, the founder and scholar at Constitutional Grounds. .com. Also, the political leader, educational speaker, former state of Oklahoma elector, United States Electoral College. That is David Oldham. I am Tommy McKay, your fine host here, 3D Politics. Every Monday night, I'm going to send you away, David. There you go. There he goes. There I go. We'll see you guys next week.